Hey everyone, welcome back to Workshop Quick Takes. Today's going to be a shorter episode. Maybe we'll actually do a short take for a change. But I want to go back and look at some previous LED projects that failed and show you just kind of a follow-up on what's going bad and why. A couple of them are from my previous episode on unconventional LED lighting mods, and then the other one is just another continuation of a light fixture in the living room that I've been repairing fixture by fixture as they go out. It's kind of a nice track light. It was pretty expensive and it's only lasted a few years. Very disappointing, but at least I figured out a way to deal with it, so you can check that one out there also. So let's get a few here under the microscope and see what's going on with them. Alright, kicking it off, here's some of the ones that I used as dome light replacements in my 2000 Jeep Cherokee and then ended up having to switch to a different style. I did talk about that in the previous video, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to look at a couple of these failed units up close and see what happened. To start with, here's one that wasn't failed, and we'll take a look at it in macro mode here. And that's kind of what it looks like. I just had it inserted into this little plastic sleeve here with these, and I originally had just a little bit of tape around here. No big deal. It should have worked fine. It's not like it was being insulated or anything. It was sitting in an open fixture, had plenty of airspace around it, and yet they kept popping. Here's two different styles. These are both Fate Electric from Home Depot. I don't recommend using them. They are 12-volt models from the garden lighting replacement bulbs. So they're supposed to replace like a small Krypton bulb or whatever that you could normally place in your little garden lights. And this one here is a larger one, fairly pedestrian. Looking at it under the macro, you can kind of see how it blew out the side there and did some minor damage on the board. It definitely failed, and that was the end of that. Nowhere near as exciting as this one though. This one here, you look at it underneath the macro mode here, and you can see how there's just like everything's kind of like bubbled up around there. It's pretty impressive. This side looks clean, but over here, yeah, just made it short from side to side across that metal substrate that it's on. In fact, if you look at it really closely here, you can kind of see how there's just like a really thin layer on top of a metallized aluminum heatsink piece thingy, something under there. Just to make that a little more vivid, I'll pull out this gigantic chip-on-board substrate LED panel that I've got here. This is another white LED panel. If you look at it from the side here, you can kind of see that the majority of that is actually a sheet of aluminum. The substrate part is a very thin printing on here, and as a result, then the traces are on top of that. So the idea is to try and get good heat transfer from the LEDs down into the aluminum backpan, which can either then act as a heat sink or you can add additional heat sinking onto that. But the problem is this substrate's really thin, so you put the traces on top of that. It doesn't take a lot for one of those traces if you get overheating to actually punch through the substrate and just short to the back of the board. And so that's kind of what's been happening on these guys. Here's another one of these light fixtures. This one hasn't quite finished going bad, but it's pretty close. I already repaired, I think, 3 of these so far. I illustrated how to do one of those previously, but essentially I've gotten pretty quick at it now just because I've done so many. You can see in my other video, originally it was like a multi-track light fixture, 6 lamps was it? Anyway, it was about 180 bucks at Lowe's when I bought it a couple of years back. And now if you look at the website, it's just full of reviews saying these things don't last, and that is my experience also. Another unit repaired. The only problem I've discovered with these Fate electric bulbs so far is that they don't dim uniformly. Two of those, the one on the far end and the one sort of in the middle, are still original bulbs from the fixture that haven't failed yet. The other four are the replacements. Two of them are almost completely out, one of them is nearly out, and one of them has dimmed normally. So even though I am using a dimmer switch that is rated for LED dimming, obviously these are not handling it very gracefully. But that's the best we can do for now. And of course the other question is what happens when LEDs age. These four can light fixtures in the kitchen here were fairly good quality ones originally, but now that they've aged a bit, you can see that last one either goes out or flickers at the lower levels of the dimmer, and when those were brand new they all dimmed uniformly, so one way or another things do wear out. Okay, this one also goes back to another project which you can see up there. I did LED swaps on these lights here and they don't seem to have the uniform brightness. I mean, the high beams both seem to work fine. Let's just throw on the hazards real quick and see those. So yeah, that looks like it's working fine, but watch what happens if we throw on the parking lights. Yeah, it's not quite as obvious in daylight, but this one here is a lot dimmer than this one over here, and I'm not sure why that is. So I'm going to pop those out and see if it's a bad connection or a bad LED bulb. And interestingly, the high beam still works normally. If I flip the hazards on, they both blink the way you'd expect. Well, to figure out what's going on there, let's go ahead and pull our fascias up here. That requires these two screws. Don't lose those. I don't want to find it in my tire again later. Okay, now to get at the two bulbs in here, I just need to pull these two screws and we're golden. Also don't want to find that in my tire later. Alright. Let's go ahead and get both of these bulb fixtures out of here. Okay, both bulbs look fine. I'm not seeing any obvious discoloration or anything, so let's pull the parking lights back on again and see if maybe some of the LEDs are just out. No, they're all illuminated, but they are not nearly as bright. Is it a bad connection or something else going on there? Oh, look at that. Seems like we might have a bad electrical connection in the socket. Yeah, look at that. So, that one was the easy fix. I'm glad I didn't go ahead and order replacements like I was tempted to do, because it turns out they're working fine. Just had a contact that wasn't making seated well in there.
Has anyone seen my phone?